The day I was discharged from the burn unit, both my mom and my husband, who had promised to pick me up, didn't show. I struggled to make it home, only to see the arsonist, who should have been in prison, sitting on the couch. Surrounded by them, I lunged forward, trying to strangle her, but my husband Benjamin Jarrett stopped me and said indifferently, "I was the one who deleted the surveillance footage that could prove Penelope burned your sister to death." My mom, Margaret Kelce, lifted her coffee cup, blew on it, and said casually, "I was the one who locked the fire exit door. That fire Penelope Langford set killed my sister, Evelyn Kelce, on the spot. It left me severely burned, and I had to go through 2 full years of skin grafts before I could barely show my face in public. For those 2 years, every time I closed my eyes, I could smell Evelyn's body burning, touching the grotesque scars on my face." I asked in a trembling voice, "Mom, Penelope is just an adopted daughter. Why are you helping her like this?" Mom replied impatiently, "Your dad already ruined Penny once when he kicked her out. She scared you a little to get revenge. Isn't that only fair? Either you keep your mouth shut, and I'll arrange plastic surgery for you, or I'd send you to a psychiatric hospital and tell everyone you lost your mind and burned your sister to death. Your choice." It had only been 3 days since Evelyn's death anniversary. After 2 years in the hospital, this was my first time coming home, and Mom said this was what we deserved. "Mom, we're your biological daughters." My voice trembled. "Why? Why would you do this to Evelyn and me? Tell me." She looked away and didn't answer. Benjamin cleared his throat and sidestepped the issue. "Natalie, Penny already knows she was wrong. She's been feeling guilty all these years, so just let it go. If you're willing to reconcile with her, I'll support you for the rest of your life. She burned my sister to death. Why should I apologize to a murderer?" I grabbed a cup from the coffee table, ready to throw it. However, Mom's slap landed across my face with a smack first. The force knocked me onto the table, and half my face burned with pain. The newly healed skin on my body tore open, and warm blood dripped onto the glass. "What are you making a scene for?" Penny was so scared that she slit her wrists and tried to kill herself to pay for your sister's life. Isn't that enough for you? Take a look at yourself. With how you look now, who would even want you besides Ben and me? Evelyn's life was worth nothing more than a cut wrist on Penelope. Meanwhile, in the hospital, I had been jabbed with the thickest needles, left to fester, burning with a fever that wouldn't break. I was forced to swallow pills until I wanted to throw up. Yet, in their eyes, none of that mattered more than Penelope. What exactly are you trying to pull? You've been stuck in a hospital bed for 2 years and still haven't figured things out. Forget it. Ben, take her back to her room. Don't let her keep making a scene and scare Penny." Benjamin walked over without hesitation, grabbed my arm, and dragged me upstairs. His grip dug straight into my barely healed wounds. "Ben, let go, it hurts." He ignored me. I struggled the entire way, pain tearing through every inch of my skin like it was being ripped off. Eventually, the pain drained me of all strength, leaving me no choice but to be dragged along. Suddenly, I laughed. Penelope was the adopted daughter our family took in 2 years ago. Dad found out she had been stealing money from the house and burned the family portrait Evelyn had drawn. Enraged, he suffered a heart attack and kicked her out of the house on the spot. Not long after that, he passed away. On the day of his funeral, Penelope showed up and caused a scene, smashing his memorial portrait. I couldn't hold back and slapped her. I never thought that slap would become their excuse to join forces and take revenge on Evelyn and me. Just listen and behave. "Stop upsetting Mrs. Kelce," Benjamin said. He threw me onto the bed and turned to leave. He didn't care at all that my wounds were still bleeding, soaking through my clothes. It took me a long time before I could even sit up again. Only then did I realize that the bedroom that used to be mine had already been taken over by Penelope. The portrait Evelyn gave me before she died was gone, replaced with Penelope's photos. The plush toys Benjamin and I had won together on our dates were gone too, replaced with the figurines she liked. At that moment, laughter drifted in from the doorway. Through the half-open door, I saw Penelope wearing my pajamas. Her arm was looped through Benjamin's, leaning into him intimately. "Ben, does this look good on me?" She tilted her head up slightly. I realized she was wearing Evelyn's necklace. That was the only thing Evelyn had left behind, the thing she treasured most when she was alive. My parents' marriage had been a marriage of convenience, and there had never been any real affection between them. Growing up, Mom had always treated us coldly. That necklace was the only thing Evelyn ever got from her. It had just been something Mom picked up casually from a random shop, but Evelyn treasured it more than anything. She wouldn't even take it off when she slept. She used to say that maybe if she wore it, Mom would look at her just a little more. Even when Evelyn's body was burned beyond recognition, that necklace was the only thing left on her. Meanwhile, anything Mom casually bought for Penelope cost a fortune. What gave her the right to take Evelyn's things? Penelope. I braced myself against the wall and walked out step by step. Each step left a faint smear of blood behind me. Give it back. Give me Evelyn's things. She turned, saw the grotesque bruise on my face, and let out a sharp scream. She covered her eyes and buried herself in Benjamin's arms. Benjamin immediately pulled her close, his brows knitting together when he looked at me. Natalie. Penny already went through enough after your dad threw her out. She's sensitive to begin with. Why didn't you put a mask on before coming out? Do you really have to push her over the edge before you're satisfied? Looking at the anger on his face, I suddenly remembered my first skin graft surgery. The infection afterward left me burning with a 40°C fever that wouldn't break. Every wound on my body oozed pus, and the pain made my entire body spasm. I couldn't take it anymore, so I called him. The phone rang forever. I called 4 times before he finally picked up. However, the first voice I heard wasn't his. It was hers. Ben, the sunset by the ocean is so pretty. Then came his voice, impatient and cold. If it hurts, go see a doctor. Penny's depression is finally getting better. I don't have time to deal with this. That night, my wounds bled and oozed nonstop, soaking through the entire bed. Even my tears had run dry. That was when I finally understood that he had always been biased against me. Benjamin shifted uncomfortably under my stare and looked away. After a long silence, he sighed and softened his tone. All right, Natalie. Penny didn't mean to start the fire. Besides, Evelyn didn't include her in the family portrait. She just wanted to blow off some steam. She didn't think it would get that bad. He paused, then added, to help her move on, Evelyn's studio has already been transferred to her. That was the place Evelyn spent the most time while she was alive. Now, it belonged to Penelope. It had been handed over to the person who killed her. Benjamin stepped closer and gently touched the uninjured side of my face. Just be a good girl. Go to tomorrow night's party and tell everyone the fire 2 years ago was an accident. Clear Penny's name. Do that, then I'll give the studio back to you. If you don't, you're never getting it back. I looked up at Benjamin. This was the man I had loved for 8 years. I met him at 18 and married him at 23. Even before my surgery, I had been thinking about him. I kept thinking about how much it would hurt and how when I got better, I'd run straight into his arms and finally break down. Now, I stood right in front of him, my face still covered in unhealed scars and my body still bleeding where the wounds had split open. Yet he was using Evelyn's last belonging to threaten me for another woman. The next day, I was forced into a high-neck gown, every inch of fabric pressed tightly against my grafted skin, trapping heat and sweat underneath. The unhealed seams itched like something was crawling under my skin. I was in so much pain that I wanted to curl up, but Benjamin gripped my arm and dragged me straight into the event hall. On Penelope's invitation, it read, Outstanding sponsored student of the Kelce Group. During the 2 years I had suffered in the hospital, she hadn't been publicly brought back as part of the Kelce family, but behind the scenes, Mom and Benjamin had been sending her money the entire time under the name of sponsorship. While I had been left in a private hospital, barely kept alive with the most basic treatment, she had been living a life 100 times better than mine. As everyone knows, I'm the adopted daughter of the Kelce family, and back then, my sister couldn't stand me and kicked me out. Standing in front of the crowd, Penelope spoke through tears. When my father passed away, I wanted to come back and pay my respects, but she pushed me, and when she hit me, she accidentally knocked over a candle, which caused the fire that killed Evelyn and burned her as well. I tried to save them, I really did. But the fire was too big and I couldn't get inside, but it's okay now, Natalie. I know you didn't mean it. You've already paid the price, and I forgive you. So from now on, we're still family." She was the one who started the fire, yet now all the blame had been placed on me. The guests around us stared at me as though I were a murderer, while Mom stood off to the side clapping, her eyes filled with approval. Penny really takes after her father. She's so kind, always returning cruelty with kindness. Hearing her voice pulled me right back to that night. The smoke had been so thick that I couldn't open my eyes, and I had pounded desperately on the fire door, only to hear her reassuring voice through the other side. "It's okay, Penny. Don't be scared. They're not getting out. Let them suffer a little and see if they still dare to bully you again." At the time, I couldn't believe those words had come from mom.ina days. I had grabbed the burning hot door handle and torn a layer of flesh clean off my hand. Now, Mom walked over and stood beside us, nodding in satisfaction. "Good girl. Come here and give her a hug." She wrapped her arm around my shoulders and pushed me toward Penelope, clearly intending for me to finish this entire performance in front of everyone. I took several steps back, but she immediately dug her fingers into the newly healed flesh at my waist and forced me forward. Pain flared sharply beneath my gown, burning so intensely that it felt as though my skin were about to be torn off again. "Just cooperate. And stop making things difficult." The moment Penelope wrapped her arms around me, I felt a sudden chill run down my back as something slid across my gown from my shoulder blade all the way down to my waist. With a tearing sound, the uneven, grotesque scars across my back were instantly exposed. "Oh my God, that's disgusting. That's so ugly. Did the graft even work? It looks like rotting flesh." The gown kept slipping. I clutched at my chest in a panic, desperately yanking the fabric back up while reaching behind me with my other hand to grab what was left of the torn material. At the same time, people had already started pulling out their phones. Flashes went off in my face over and over again. Is that even a person? She looks like a walking corpse. If that were me, I'd never show my face in public. And she actually showed up here like this. I fumbled with my gown, completely overwhelmed, as every word echoed in my ears without mercy. I end my panic. I turned instinctively to look for Benjamin. I wanted my husband to step in to shield me and protect the little dignity I had left. He was standing right there at the edge of the crowd, only a few steps away, close enough that he could have reached me in seconds. Yet Benjamin took off his jacket and draped it over Penelope instead. Then he turned back to me, his gaze filled with unmistakable disgust. "Natalie, have you completely lost it? Are you really trying to get attention like this? Hurting yourself in public? You spent 2 years in the hospital and still didn't learn anything?" It wasn't me. I tried to explain, to tell him that Penelope had done this, that she had been holding a blade. Before I could say anything more, Mom walked over. Another slap landed hard across my tear-streaked face. "Enough. Ben, take Penny to the lounge. Don't let this lunatic scare her." She turned and waved sharply at the security guards. "Get this psycho out of here." She lost her mind and burned her own sister to death back then, and I'm not letting her ruin Penny now. The guards rushed forward all at once. They grabbed my arms and dragged me toward the exit. "Let me go." As I struggled, a large patch of skin was scraped raw from my arm, the pain so intense that my vision went black and blood soaked through instantly. They threw me into a car like I was nothing more than garbage. After what felt like forever, the car door opened. They hauled me out and dragged me straight into Evelyn's old art studio. Penelope walked in behind me in high heels, her expression full of smug satisfaction. She held a stack of papers in her hand. Right in front of me, she lit them one by one and watched as they burned into ash. Every single one of them had been drawings Evelyn made of Mom. They were sketches of Mom drinking tea, reading, and napping on the couch. Evelyn had wanted so badly to be praised, to be noticed, even just once. She had drawn so many of them. Does it hurt? Penelope smiled, her expression twisted. Back then, your sister burned the same way, little by little, until she turned into ash. Before the fire, Evelyn had held up that family portrait, the one Penelope wasn't in, and asked me with red, tear-filled eyes, "Do you think, if Penelope leaves, Mom will notice me more?" She said that once Mom finally noticed her, she would give that painting as a gift. Stop. Put it out. The flames crawled over the paper, devouring Evelyn's smiling face. I lunged forward like I had lost my mind, trying to snatch them back, but Penelope's bodyguards forced me down onto the ground. She lifted her foot and stepped on my face. The pressure bore down on my cheek, grinding into the uneven scars. I just wanted a comfortable life. You forced me out, so don't blame me for being ruthless. That old man deserved to die, and so did your sister. This is what you get for going against me. With my cheek pressed to the ground, my vision slowly blurred. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I caught a glance of a bottle of turpentine Evelyn hadn't used. Sitting in the corner, I looked at Penelope's arrogant smile, and suddenly, I laughed. 4 hours later, back at the party, Mom and Benjamin had finally cleared out the guests, and they were both wondering where Penelope and I had gone. Flames roared sky-high from the direction of the studio. Penelope stumbled out through the thick smoke, coughing violently, and a large section of her skirt burned black. Her face was smeared with soot as she cursed between coughs. Even dying, she had to make things difficult. What a disaster. Halfway through, she looked up and froze. Benjamin and Mom were standing just outside the studio. In an instant, Penelope changed her expression, collapsing into tears. I'm sorry. Ben, Mom, this is all my fault. She dropped to the ground in front of them, sobbing uncontrollably. I felt so bad for Natalie. She just got out of the hospital, and everyone was laughing at her. I was afraid she'd do something reckless, so I brought her here to calm down, but she suddenly lost control and said we ruined her life, that everyone should die with Evelyn, and then she set the place on fire. I tried to stop her, but the flames got too big. Hearing this, Mom froze, her eyes unfocused as she stared at the burning studio. You're saying Natalie is still inside? Penelope nodded through tears. Mom staggered as if she might collapse at any moment. Mom, I know you're hurting, but you still have me. Penelope buried herself in her arms, crying even harder. I thought I was going to die in there, too. That's right. I still have Penny. Mom patted her stiffly, her voice trembling. You're the only one left. You're your father's daughter. He's gone. I can't lose you too. As for Natalie, that ungrateful girl, I can't believe she'd go as far as arson. Ben, hurry. Get the rescue team in there and find her. This time, I'm sending her to a psychiatric hospital. No, I'll handle her myself and teach her how to behave. Her voice shook as tears filled her eyes. She had already lost her younger daughter, and her eldest had been burned beyond recognition. Even so, she was still her child. As long as Natalie behaved and stopped bullying Penelope, she had planned to keep her hidden away and take care of her for life. Alas, it had come to this. What are you standing around for? Benjamin, go. Her voice broke. Benjamin finally snapped out of it. He stared at the flames, his chest tightening. Growing up in an orphanage, he had always been pushed aside. And Penelope had been the only one willing to stay by his side. He had always treated her like a younger sister. But after they got together, Penelope would show up with injuries every few days. She would cry and say it was Natalie teaching her a lesson for getting too close to him. One was family, and the other was the woman he loved. At first, he had only wanted to teach Natalie how to get along with Penelope. He hadn't meant for things to spiral out of control. Right, the rescue team. Put out the fire. I'm going in. Nat, please be okay. I'll take you home right now. He rushed forward, ready to charge into the fire with them. Just then, a bodyguard came running over, pale and shaking. Mr. Jarrett, Mrs. Kelce. Miss Natalie isn't in the studio. There's a burned body by the lake behind the hill. Based on the build, it's a young woman, and she's still clutching Miss Evelyn's necklace in her hand. In that instant, Benjamin and Mom's faces turned completely white. They shoved through the crowd like they'd lost their minds and ran toward the lake. The wind by the water was cold. A body lay motionless on the grass, burned beyond recognition. The only thing intact was the charred hand, still gripping a 4-leaf clover necklace. It had been Evelyn's most treasured possession. It was also the only thing Mom had ever given her. No, that's not her. Mom staggered, shaking her head violently. Evelyn's necklace was at home. I put it away myself. This has to be Natalie's doing. She's trying to get back at me for not picking her up. She's lying again. At that moment, the housekeeper called. Mrs. Kelce, Ms. Evelyn's necklace is missing. There's only a note left in the box, written by Ms. Natalie. It says, I'm taking Evelyn's necklace. The phone slipped from her hand and hit the ground as Mom collapsed. Benjamin's legs gave out, and he dropped to his knees beside the body. His hands trembled as he reached toward it, but just before touching the charred skin, he froze, unable to go any further. That had been the wife he had waited for 2 years. Now, she was nothing more than a silent, lifeless shell that would never cry out in pain again. His vision spun as he reached for the necklace. Instead, his hand brushed against something beneath the body. It was a recording pen, half melted by the fire. Truck after truck poured water over the flames. At last, the fire in the studio was extinguished, and Margaret slowly regained consciousness. The first thing she did was head straight for the studio. Penelope rushed forward to stop her, her face full of concern. Mom, it's dangerous in there. You shouldn't go in. Margaret didn't even seem to hear her and shoved her aside. The studio had been burned into a blackened ruin, ashes drifting through the air. Among the debris, she found several partially burned drawings. They were all pictures Evelyn had drawn of her. In them, she smiled gently or sat quietly reading. On the back of one, written in neat handwriting, were the words, "Today, Mom smiled at Penelope. I'm so jealous. If I'm lucky enough, will Mom love me someday too? Will she tell me stories like she does for Penelope? I'll wear the 4-leaf clover necklace Mom gave me every day, so she'll look at me more. Mom, when will you hug me?" Margaret stood frozen, clutching the charred pages. Penelope followed her in, completely oblivious. She glanced at the drawings. A flicker of jealousy crossed her eyes before she quickly masked it with a pitiful expression. Mom, now that Natalie's gone, this place is useless. Why don't we just tear it down? Keeping these ruins will only remind you of everything. We should move on. A sharp slap cut her off. Penelope staggered back, her face swelling instantly as she stared at Margaret in disbelief. This is the only thing my daughter left behind. Margaret's voice was hoarse, raw with grief. And you want to tear it down? Penelope, what exactly are you thinking? It was the first time Penelope had ever seen Margaret this furious. A flash of resentment flickered in her eyes before tears welled up again. She turned toward Benjamin, who had just entered, reaching for him. Ben, I was only thinking about Mom. I was worried she wouldn't be able to handle it. Please help me explain. She reached out and grabbed his sleeve. Benjamin slowly pulled his hand away. In his hand, he held the half-burned recording pen. Penelope, you've gone too far. Benjamin stared at the recording pen, his voice hollow. I already transferred the title for the studio a long time ago. I was planning to give it back to Natalie after tonight's party. I just wanted to scare her a little and make her behave. How could you do something like this? What are you talking about? Ben, I don't even understand what you're saying. Penelope stammered. His fingers tightened around the damaged recorder. Right in front of Mom and Penelope, he pressed play. After a burst of static, Penelope's distorted voice came through clearly. I just wanted a comfortable life. You forced me out, so don't blame me for being ruthless. That old man deserved to die, and so did your sister. This is what you get for going against me. Then came Natalie's voice, low and filled with despair. Penelope, let's go to hell together. The recording cut off abruptly. Penelope's face drained of color in an instant. That's not real. It's edited. Natalie set me up. This time, Benjamin didn't soften. He just looked at her calmly. 2 years ago, Natalie said you started the fire. I didn't believe her. She said you stole money. I didn't believe her. She said you smashed her dad's portrait. I still didn't believe her. He let out a bitter laugh, his eyes rimmed red. I kept thinking she'd changed, that she'd become unreasonable. Turns out the only person who lost their mind was me. He pulled out his phone and threw it hard at Penelope's feet. The screen lit up, and a glaring headline caught her eye. Take a look at this yourself. Penelope glanced down, and in that moment, it felt like her world had collapsed. Half an hour earlier, An email Natalie had scheduled in advance had been sent out to every major media outlet. The subject line read, "The truth behind the Kelce family's adopted daughter abusing and how they killed their biological daughter." Attached was a crystal-clear audio clip. "Penelope burned your sister to death. I was the one who deleted the surveillance footage. I was the one who closed the fire exit door." Benjamin and Mom's calm, in different voices, had been heard by millions. Below that, a nurse from the private hospital where Natalie had been treated had posted a clarification video. She uploaded every single transfer record showing Penelope bribing hospital staff over the past 2 years. Cut off her pain meds. Replace them with saline. Let her suffer. Use the biggest needle you have. Pain will teach her a lesson. If it gets infected, leave it. Why isn't that bitch dead yet? The comment section exploded. Oh my god, a mother locked the fire exit and burned her own daughter alive? What kind of monster does that? Severe burns, no pain relief. Stabbing with thick needles. That's torture. That's worse than prison abuse. She spent 2 years suffering in the hospital and got driven to death days after coming home, Mom. It really wasn't me. Mom, say something. Penelope lunged toward her, staring at the news on her phone. Margaret said nothing. She simply pushed Penelope away. She had chosen that private hospital to ensure her daughter would receive the best care. She had even paid a premium, insisting they treat her properly. She had never imagined Penelope had been sabotaging everything behind the scenes and mistreating her biological daughter. "Penelope, I adopted you because of your father. He was the only man I ever loved. From today on, you are no longer my daughter, and don't call me Mom again." She remembered being young and secretly in love with Penelope's father. Unfortunately, because of an arranged marriage, she had no choice but to marry Natalie's father instead. After her first love died in a car accident, she insisted on adopting Penelope, and in her grief, she poured all of her love and favoritism into that adopted daughter, as if doing so could somehow bring back everything she had lost. She never imagined that this very favoritism would end up killing both of her own daughters. It finally made sense why Natalie had spent 2 full years in the hospital before she slowly began to recover. After saying all of that, Margaret closed her eyes in exhaustion. Meanwhile, Benjamin stood where he was as his phone kept ringing, one call after another, with news of the stock price crashing, partners pulling out, and public outrage exploding, all hitting him at once. He shut his eyes, knowing everything was over. 3 days later, Penelope was dragged through the mud online and treated like public enemy number 1. Her photos spread everywhere, her bank accounts were frozen, and she didn't even dare step outside, with nowhere left to run. She completely lost it and slipped a heavy dose of drugs into Benjamin's drink. She planned to take whatever cash and jewelry he had left and make a run for it overseas. What she didn't know was that Benjamin had already caught on. He watched her coldly as she poured the drug into his glass. Then, he pretended to drink it and collapsed onto the couch as if in agony. The moment she dropped her guard and rushed to open the safe, he came up behind her and knocked her out with a single, brutal blow. When she woke up, she found herself locked in a dark basement. The entire place had been set up to look exactly like the hospital room Natalie had once lived in. "Ben, what are you doing? Let me go." She was strapped to a hospital bed, screaming in panic. Benjamin walked in without any expression, holding a red-hot branding iron. "Penelope, don't you like playing with fire? Then you can feel exactly what you put Natalie through." Her scream ripped through the room as the smell of burning flesh filled the air. Benjamin ordered that all painkillers be removed. Then he picked up the thickest needle in the hospital and drove it into her skin again and again. Her wounds festered and rotted, and he didn't care in the slightest. Does it hurt? Natalie went through the same pain. She was in so much agony. "Benjamin, you've lost your mind. This is illegal. You're going to prison for this." "Is that so?" He didn't even look at her. Instead, he kicked over a container of burning coals, letting the flames scorch her leg. "Then let's see who gets there first." From that point on, Penelope lived in constant torment. She screamed and begged every single day. Meanwhile, Benjamin sat outside the basement, talking to the photo of that charred body. He even took a knife and carved the same scars into his own body, trying to ease his guilt in the most twisted way possible. At the same time, Margaret collapsed from stress and was hospitalized, but Benjamin never once went to see her. The Kelce Group went completely bankrupt. 2 months later, at the company's liquidation meeting, Benjamin and Margaret sat there looking hollow and worn down, like two people who had lost everything. At that moment, the conference room doors swung open. A woman in a black backless evening gown walked in. Her skin was smooth and flawless, without a single scar. Her face was stunning, and her presence was cold and commanding. The second Benjamin saw her clearly, he shot to his feet. Life rushed back into his empty eyes as he ran toward her like a man who had lost his mind. "Natty, is that you? You're alive, right?" I stepped back and gently pushed him away. "Mr. Jarrett, you've got the wrong person. I'm the Kelce Group's largest creditor." Looking at the two of them standing there in such miserable states, I let out a small smile. That so-called charred body had been nothing more than an unidentified corpse I bought off the black market for a steep price. I had endured everything just for this day, so I could take back my father's company and clear out all the trash. Margaret trembled as she stood up. She stared at my face, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Natty, you're alive." She stumbled toward me and grabbed my sleeve, her voice breaking as she pleaded, "I was wrong. I really was. Please forgive me, okay? Let's go home." I looked at the woman who gave birth to me and gave a faint smile. Then I pried her fingers off my sleeve, one by one. "Ma'am, please get it together. The moment you locked that fire exit 2 years ago, your daughter died that day." Her hand froze in place. Still, she shook her head stubbornly. "No matter what, I know it's you. As long as you're alive, that's all that matters." Benjamin staggered toward me. The scars on his hands were impossible to ignore. I instinctively took a step back, and his voice shook as he spoke. "Natty, I deleted the footage for Penelope. I threatened you with the studio. I didn't step in to help you back then. I know I'm a terrible person. You can hate me, hit me, and even kill me if you want. I only ask that you just look at me one more time." Upon hearing this, I let out a quiet, almost amused laugh. My gaze remained calm and completely still. "Mr. Jarrett, because of the harm you've caused me, I've already filed for a divorce. The papers will be sent to you. Once you sign them, we're done." He stood there, stunned. "Natty." Before he could say anything else, I pulled my sleeve free and turned to leave. That night, Benjamin waited outside my hotel the entire time, but I never went to see him. After that, Margaret stayed in the Kelce's residence and gradually stopped recognizing anyone. Every day, she talked to 2 empty picture frames, laughing and crying to herself. "Evie, I brought you your favorite strawberries. Natty, look at this dress. It's the newest one this year. Do you like it? Why won't you answer me? I won't scold you anymore. Come hug me, okay?" The only response she ever got was the cold wind blowing through the house. Penelope was sentenced to death for intentional homicide, along with multiple additional charges. In prison, her wounds became infected, and she completely lost her mind. She screamed every day, saying she was being burned alive. Even on the day of her execution, she was still struggling in a state of madness. Benjamin, buried under massive debt and covered in scars he inflicted on himself, eventually disappeared into the shadows of the city like a ghost no one cared about. 1 year later, on a quiet beach at dawn, a gentle breeze drifted through the air. I stood on the sand, holding Evelyn's portrait. The sun rose over the horizon, lighting up the 4-leaf clover pendant at my chest. "Natalie, when I grow up, I'm going to make a lot of money and buy you a big house. Then we'll leave this place and never come back." I reached out and touched the smiling face in the photo. A tear rolled down my cheek as I smiled. "Okay, Evie, it's morning.